Welcome to Sleepy Science. Tonight we're uncovering the secret life of spices. Cinnamon, cardamom, saffron, they are not just for flavor. They hide tiny whispers from the past, little secrets that can calm your mind, slow your thoughts, and pull you gently into sleep. Some have traveled across oceans, carried stories older than humans themselves. Some release invisible magic when crushed, burned, or brewed. Stick with me, and you'll see spices like you've never seen before. And before we dive in, hit subscribe so the quiet mysteries of the world always find you. The night is thick. The world outside is quiet, but inside, the jars on the old wooden shelf seem alive. Tiny seeds rest in their dark homes, each one holding stories no one has ever heard. They are silent, but they have memory. They have existed long before humans knew their value. They have traveled more than any explorer. A single cinnamon stick lies across a pile of cardamom pods. It shifts just a little, as if remembering a path through time. Some seeds are small, almost invisible. Others are larger, rough, or shiny. Each one has a shape that tells a story. Look closely and you might see tiny cracks, small scars, marks from centuries of movement and survival. Those marks are not random. They are records. They are reminders of distant forests, scorching deserts, crowded markets, and silent nights under stars no human ever counted. Every seed has witnessed something. Every seed has waited. There is a kind of energy in a jar full of seeds that is hard to describe. It is quiet, it is still, but it moves if you are paying attention. A clove seems to lean toward the cardamom. A tiny black peppercorn shivers as if it remembers the sound of a river it has never seen again. Some seeds carry the smell of lands far away. A single sniff can awaken memories humans have never lived. You breathe in a hidden history. The scent is subtle, soft, almost like a whisper. Cinnamon is different. Cinnamon remembers warmth. It has sat by fires and in kitchens for hundreds of years. Its aroma is not just spice. It is an echo of 1,000 nights. Cardamom remembers rain on distant mountains. Nutmeg remembers the ocean's edge, the salt in the air, the ships that carried it across the world. Each seed carries a story in its shape, in its scent, in the way it seems to move when no one is looking. If you tilt the jar slightly, you can hear it, not with your ears but with your mind. The tiny shuffle of seeds against each other is a sound older than human sleep. The soft tapping of a single clove rolling is a rhythm. The movement is deliberate. It is as if the seeds are waiting for someone to notice them, someone patient enough to listen. A quiet mind. A mind ready to follow their secrets into the night. Humans have always sensed it, even if they could not name it. Spices have been carried across mountains and oceans for thousands of years. They have survived storms, wars, and long journeys packed in tiny sacks or hidden in ships. And yet, when they arrive, they do not scream for attention. They wait. They wait for quiet nights when the mind is willing to follow their story. They wait for the perfect moment to release a fraction of their memory. The jars themselves seem ancient. Dark glass, chipped lids, faded labels in strange letters. They hold more than seeds. They hold invisible threads that connect the past and the present. One jar might contain black pepper that came from a market no longer on any map. Another might hold turmeric that dried in a sun long gone. You cannot see the history in a single glance. You have to look closely. You have to be willing to notice the small details. The way a pod curves, the way a seed rests against another, the tiny scratches on a shell. Some seeds are stubborn. Cloves, for example, resist the air. They seem closed off, hiding something even from their neighbors. But when the right hand touches them, when they are crushed lightly or rubbed between fingers, they give a whisper. A scent slips into the room. It is soft, almost secretive. It is a message from far away, a message that can calm even the busiest mind. Humans have learned to pay attention. Those who notice the subtle changes in spices understand something deeper about life itself. The jars are not arranged randomly. Some say the way spices sit together changes their power. Cinnamon next to nutmeg, cardamom near cloves. These are not just decisions for flavor. There is a rhythm in how seeds touch each other, in how they lean and rest. Even the empty spaces between them are important. The quiet air holds their stories as much as the shells themselves. And when night falls, when the house is still, they begin to hum together in a way only the patient can hear. You might think you are alone. You are not. The seeds have company, the night, the shadows, the faint light that filters through the window. The floorboards creak under the weight of quiet. A clock ticks slowly, reminding the mind of the passing hours. But the seeds are patient. They have waited longer than any of us, and they will wait longer still. They are not in a hurry. Their stories are not told in loud voices. They are told in the small moments, in the shifts, the tiny movements, the almost invisible scratches and cracks. Sometimes a single seed can capture your attention. A saffron thread glows faintly in the dark. It almost seems alive. It is fragile, yet it carries more history than you can imagine. A nutmeg pod has a rough skin, but inside it holds oils that have traveled from distant mountains. A black cardamom pod releases a smoky scent if you touch it just right. And when you notice these small things, when your mind pays attention, the seeds begin to share their stories more clearly. Even the air around them feels different. It is heavier in a good way, not suffocating but weighted with possibilities. The smell of dry seeds, of cinnamon and cloves, of cardamom and nutmeg, drifts slowly through the room. It is easy to ignore, but if you lean in, if you close your eyes for a moment, you feel it brushing against the edges of your thoughts. You feel something ancient and patient, waiting for you to understand. The magic is in the details. A single crack, a tiny roll of a cinnamon stick, a cardamom pod leaning slightly to the side, these are not mistakes. They are messages. They are invitations. They ask you to slow down, to notice, to let the night stretch longer, to let your mind become quiet enough to hear. And when you listen, the seeds are no longer just seeds. They are storytellers. They are keepers of secrets. They are companions in the night. No one knows exactly why spices do this. Maybe it is memory. Maybe it is chemistry. Maybe it is something older, something we cannot name. What matters is that they wait. They wait for someone to notice. They wait for a mind willing to follow them into stillness, into calm. And in that calm, if you allow yourself, the mind begins to soften, the thoughts slow, and the night becomes a little deeper, a little quieter. The cinnamon stick rolls again. Tiny, almost imperceptible. A cardamom pod nudges forward as if acknowledging you. The seeds are speaking in their own way, a way older than any voice you have ever heard. They are patient. They are quiet. They are waiting for your attention. And if you give it, even for a moment, they will guide you. Guide you into stillness, into focus, into a space where the mind can finally rest. And in that space, the story of the seeds begins to become your story too. Every tiny movement, every faint scent, every whispered memory flows into the mind. The night holds it all. The seeds hold it all. And as you lie back, as you listen, as you let the quiet take over, you realize that these small travelers have been waiting for you all along. A breeze carries crushed cardamom. It moves quietly through the room, soft enough to be almost invisible. It slips past thought and lands directly on memory. The nose cannot explain it. It only remembers. A human breathes in slowly, unaware of why sleep suddenly feels closer. There is something in the spice that pulls without force, without words, without expectation. It is subtle, like a shadow that touches the edge of vision. The smell is not just smell. It is a map. It reaches places inside the mind where words do not go. It opens doors humans have long forgotten. Each inhalation brings a story forward, a fragment of another life. Maybe it is the heat of a distant kitchen. Maybe it is the rain falling on mountain leaves. Maybe it is a street market where spices were once traded with quiet urgency. Each inhalation carries weight, though no one can see it. Cardamom is not alone. Cinnamon joins it. Cloves hide behind, letting the scent rise slowly, almost secretly. Nutmeg hums low, subtle and persistent, like the echo of a bell far away. Each smell has its own voice. Together they form a language humans cannot speak but can understand. The language is not loud. It does not shout. It whispers. And in whispers the mind softens. Even the smallest seed can hold a surprising power. A single black peppercorn, when crushed, releases an earthy scent that triggers memory in a fraction of a second. A pinch of crushed fennel feels familiar, though it may have never been tasted before. The memory is not always clear. Sometimes it is only a feeling, warmth, calm, longing, something that hints at safety and rest. Humans do not always notice these small effects, but the mind does. It follows the trail without question. Spices have been traveling and transforming for centuries. They have moved across deserts, rivers, and oceans, carried in small sacks, hidden in ships, tucked into baskets. Along the way, they gathered stories. Some remember nights of thunder and rain when the air smelled sharp and clean. Some remember dry sun and cracked earth when survival depended on every grain. When these spices meet a human, their stories reach forward like invisible threads, brushing gently against memory and pulling it toward quiet. The smell reaches deeper than thought. It goes past the parts of the brain that try to analyze, categorize, and measure. It touches something older, something instinctive. Humans may not even realize it is happening. They might only notice that the mind is quieter, that the heartbeat feels softer, that sleep comes a little closer without effort. This is not magic. This is history, chemistry, and life compressed into tiny seeds, carried silently for centuries. Sometimes the effect is stronger at certain times of night. A human sitting quietly, thinking of nothing, might suddenly smell cardamom or cloves from nowhere. The air itself seems to carry it. Perhaps it is carried from a jar across the room. Perhaps it is lingering from old wood. Perhaps it is released slowly by the warmth of the night. The origin does not matter. What matters is the effect, the way the mind pauses, notices, softens, and follows. The scent can awaken images long forgotten. Cinnamon brings back a memory of firelight, the smell of roasted grains, a faint warmth in the chest. Cardamom recalls mountains, rain dripping from leaves, distant rivers. Nutmeg hints at quiet kitchens in another world, where someone has been preparing a simple meal under soft candlelight. Cloves hold the smell of markets crowded with whispers and unseen hands exchanging tiny treasures. Each scent is a story, waiting to be noticed. Some spices have a more subtle language than others. Star anise, for example, does not demand attention. It simply waits. When the mind is ready, it releases a soft, licorice-like note that travels slowly into memory. Coriander seeds release a gentle, earthy perfume, connecting the room to faraway fields. Even the faintest aroma can be enough to tug sleep closer if the mind is willing to follow. Spices also speak to the body. The aroma of ginger warms the chest slightly. Cloves make the air feel heavier, in a comforting way, like a soft blanket over restless thoughts. Nutmeg slows the mind without a single command, softening edges that have been sharp all day. These effects are subtle, often unnoticed, but cumulative. The more attention given to the scent, the deeper the calm becomes. Humans often underestimate smell. They think it is only for flavor, or for warning of danger, or for fleeting pleasure. But smell remembers. It keeps the record of every place a spice has been, every touch it has experienced, every night it has waited for someone to notice. The memory is encoded in oils, in the way the pod has dried, in the natural essence of the seed. When the human nose catches it, it releases instantly into the mind, carrying centuries without explanation. Sometimes, the mind feels it first before the nose notices. A person may sit, closing their eyes, and suddenly a thought softens. The body relaxes. Sleep feels like it is approaching without any clear reason. If they open their eyes, nothing has changed in the room. But somewhere just beyond perception, cardamom or cinnamon has spoken. The mind has answered. The body has followed. The moment passes quietly, leaving no proof, only feeling. Spices also guide attention in subtle ways. Their smell can anchor wandering thoughts. A single inhalation can pull the mind away from worries, from the noise of the day, into the present moment. The present moment is quiet, empty, still. And in that space, sleep can arrive without urgency, without effort. The human does not force it. It comes because the mind has been softened, nudged by history, aroma, and something older than reasoning. The most fascinating thing is how invisible it all is. A single pod resting on a wooden shelf might release just enough scent to touch memory. No one would notice it consciously. No one would even smell it directly. But the mind senses it anyway. It responds. The body relaxes. Sleep approaches as if led by a guide no one can see. The spices are patient. They do not hurry. They wait for the perfect moment, for the mind to be ready, for the body to open. Even when spices are not actively crushed or burned, they leave traces. Tiny traces in the air, a soft echo of past movement. Cardamom might hold the memory of mountains it has crossed, cinnamon the echo of 1,000 kitchens, nutmeg the scent of a warm, distant room. When humans pass near them, some part of the mind notices. It remembers, even if the conscious mind does not. And that memory is enough to calm, to prepare for rest, to pull sleep just a little closer. The room itself seems to respond. Air grows heavier in a comforting way. Shadows lean slightly. Light falls across the wooden jars in a way that highlights the shapes of the seeds inside. A faint tapping might occur as one pod shifts against another. The sound is quiet, rhythmic, almost imperceptible. It matches the rhythm of slowed breath. Each movement, each sound, each aroma is part of a hidden pattern the mind follows automatically, without thought. No one can explain it fully. Humans have tried for centuries. Science has studied chemical compounds. History has recorded trade routes. Stories have been written. But nothing captures the way smell touches memory in the quiet of night, how spices can slow thought without command, how a single pod can guide a restless mind toward stillness. It is subtle, it is mysterious, and it waits for each person to discover in their own time. A breeze moves again. Cardamom rises gently. Cinnamon follows, soft and warm. Cloves whisper low, nutmeg hums in the corner. Each contributes to a quiet orchestra, one that no ears can hear but that the mind feels instantly. The body responds. The heart softens. Muscles loosen. The mind begins to release the day. And somewhere, without realizing it, sleep slides in closer. This is the secret of spices. They are not just flavor or decoration. They are travelers, teachers, guides. They remember far more than humans do. They connect time, place, and memory in ways we barely notice. And if you are patient, if you allow yourself to notice the faint whispers they send, they will lead you into quiet, calm, and the edge of sleep without ever saying a word. Spices meet fire. The flames are low, flickering across the surface of the pan. Smoke curls and dances like invisible fingers. It rises slowly, winding through the air, carrying secrets that no human has yet heard. Blackened cloves release a voice only the night can catch, a faint hum that seems almost alive. Ancient humans discovered the hush it brings. They noticed that the smell of fire on spices calms the mind, softens the body, and makes sleep come quietly, without force. Cinnamon sizzles slightly at the edges. Its sweet, warm scent rises with the heat. The aroma is more than flavor. It is memory, and it is warning. It carries the knowledge of kitchens long gone, of fires that burned low while families slept nearby. The spice remembers the rhythm of human life, the quiet moments when the world was still. Each flicker of smoke seems to carry a story, stretching across time, reaching toward anyone willing to pay attention. Cloves are darker, heavier. When they meet fire, their scent changes. It becomes deeper, earthier, almost like the whisper of a hidden forest. Some people might think it is just smell, but it is more. It touches the mind in a way nothing else does. Thoughts slow. Breathing softens. Muscles relax without a single instruction. Sleep is drawn closer like a quiet visitor moving through the room. The first humans to discover this did not write it down. They did not label it science. They noticed patterns. Nights when the fire burned just right, when the spices were added carefully, the children slept longer. Animals rested. The household felt calmer. There was a rhythm in the smoke, a silent song. Spices and fire together spoke in a language older than words. Those who listened understood without thinking. Even the smallest action can release this hidden voice. A single pinch of nutmeg thrown into hot milk sends tiny wisps of scent into the air. It spreads slowly, almost imperceptibly, curling along the edges of the room. The aroma is not loud. It does not announce itself. But it is present, touching the edge of perception, nudging the mind toward quiet. It is subtle, almost invisible, yet undeniable if you notice. Smoke has a way of holding stories. A bit of star anise added to boiling water releases curls of vapor that seem to move on their own. It carries the memory of distant mountains where the spice grew, the hands that harvested it carefully, the sun that dried it slowly, the wind that carried it across lands. Each twist of smoke holds fragments of time, fragments of life, fragments of experience that are otherwise lost. Humans sense it without knowing. The mind softens, the body follows. Fire does something else. It changes the spice itself. Oils trapped inside seeds and pods are released suddenly. The scent becomes stronger, deeper, more insistent. Cinnamon warms the air. Cardamom rises with a hint of sweetness. Cloves settle into a smoky hum that touches the chest. Nutmeg whispers softly, delicate and persistent. Each spice has its own voice. Each voice is different, but together they form a quiet harmony that the mind understands instinctively. There is a rhythm to the way spices meet fire. First comes heat, then scent, then the invisible tug at the mind. Sometimes the smoke moves lazily, curling upward. Sometimes it twists sharply, sharp enough to catch attention. A single inhalation can carry the mind to a place far from the room. Maybe it is a distant market. Maybe it is a forest where the wind carries the smell of earth and wood. Maybe it is a quiet kitchen where someone long gone prepared food in silence. The mind cannot always name the place, but it feels it. It knows it. Humans have long learned to respect this quiet power. Kitchens were not just places to cook. They were places to release memory into the air, to let the scent of fire and spice reach those who needed rest. Some nights before bed, a fire was lit just to carry the aroma. Spices were toasted gently, oils released, smoke curling across the room. Children slept. Adults calmed. The world outside continued, but inside, the fire and the spices held stillness like a secret. Even the act of stirring spices in hot water has its own subtle effect. Tiny grains move, release their essence slowly. Steam rises. It smells different from the original seed. The transformation is quiet but complete. Humans feel it immediately. Breathing slows. Thoughts soften. The mind follows the scent to quiet corners, unexplored places, memories that had been hidden under the noise of the day. Fire unlocks what the seed has held all along. Some spices reveal secrets only when touched by flame. Cardamom is gentle. It releases a soft, almost sweet aroma. Nutmeg is patient. It waits until heat brings out a deeper warmth. Cloves are bold, speaking in dark, earthy tones that fill the room. Cinnamon is familiar, a reminder of comfort and safety. Together, these spices speak in a language humans can feel but cannot hear. They guide sleep, not by force but by quiet insistence. The smoke itself seems alive in the night. It coils along the walls, around the jars, over the counter. It moves slowly, but the mind notices. The eyes see the faint curls. The nose smells the subtle change in scent as the fire interacts with each spice differently. The room seems to breathe in response. Shadows lengthen. Air grows warmer. The mind becomes softer. The body follows. Sleep approaches without urgency. Even the sound of fire adds to the effect. The gentle crackle of small flames, the faint hiss as oils release, the tiny pop when a clove hits a hot surface, all of it is part of the experience. Humans who listen carefully begin to notice patterns. Fire, smoke, spice, and breath become one rhythm. The mind becomes calm because it recognizes this rhythm instinctively. Sleep does not need to be forced. It is invited. Some spices hold stories of their own journeys. Cinnamon remembers the forests where it grew, the hands that harvested it, the sun that dried it slowly. Cloves remember the humid air of distant islands, the ships that carried them across seas, the markets where they were exchanged silently. Cardamom recalls the high mountains, the wind, the rain, and the patient care that kept it alive. When fire meets these seeds, all that history is released in tiny wisps of smoke and scent. Humans rarely notice the full power of this interaction. They might only feel it, a sudden calm, a softening of thought, a slowing of the heartbeat, a sense of warmth that spreads across the chest. Fire unlocks what the spice has been holding for centuries. The smoke carries it to the mind without effort. The mind follows, quietly, naturally, willingly. The most fascinating part is how invisible it all is. Smoke can fill a room without anyone seeing it directly. The scent can touch memory without conscious thought. One human might notice it immediately. Another might not, but the effect is the same. Calm comes, thoughts ease, sleep grows nearer. Fire and spice have done their work quietly, perfectly, as they have for thousands of years. The night itself seems to listen. Shadows stretch along the walls, moving with the flicker of the flame. The jars of spices sit quietly, waiting for their turn. A small pinch of nutmeg, a few cloves tossed into the pan, cinnamon sprinkled gently. These tiny actions release stories. Stories that have traveled centuries. Stories that will guide the mind toward rest. And if the mind is patient, if the body is willing, sleep arrives without a sound. No one can explain it fully. Science can describe oils and chemical compounds. History can track trade routes. But no one can capture the way smoke carries memory, how spices speak only to the quiet mind, how fire unlocks hidden stories, how a single inhalation can pull sleep closer. It is subtle. It is ancient. It is patient. And it waits for each person to discover it in their own way. A final curl of smoke rises from the pan. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, they all speak together now. Their voices are soft, nearly imperceptible, but the mind notices. Breathing slows, muscles relax, thoughts soften. Sleep comes quietly, led by a language older than words, older than humans, and carried by fire and spice into the night. Turmeric glows faintly in moonlight. Its yellow seems almost alive, soft but bright, like a tiny sun trapped in powder. Paprika hums in deep red, a quiet pulse that calls the eye without shouting. Color carries meaning before thought. It reaches places in the mind that words cannot touch. Piles of powdered spices glow softly on the shelf, inviting the eye to linger, to follow, to notice what is usually unseen. The room holds them quietly, and yet they speak louder than any voice. Saffron threads are fragile. They shimmer faintly, gold against dark glass. They seem to hold the memory of sunlight, of mountains, of hands that carefully picked them. A single strand catches the moonlight just right, and the mind feels it even before the eye does. Something about the color pulls attention gently, guiding thought into quiet corners. The body responds without command, muscles loosening, heartbeats softening, the mind opening to stillness. Chili powder hums differently. It is not bright in a soft way. Its red is deeper, warmer, almost secretive. It seems to hide heat in its color, a quiet promise of sensation. Even when untouched, it suggests stories. Stories of sun-baked fields, of farmers working in rhythm with wind and rain, of grains crushed over stone for centuries. The color alone carries this weight, though no one consciously notices. The mind senses it. The body obeys in quiet ways, preparing for rest. Turmeric and paprika, saffron and chili together form a subtle orchestra of color. It is not loud. It does not demand attention. It whispers. Shadows stretch across the piles, moving with the faint flicker of the moon. The eye follows the curves of powdered mountains, the tiny peaks of crushed seeds. The mind feels the rhythm before it names it. Each color has its own voice, and together they speak softly, weaving a path into calm. Even the smallest detail matters. A pinch of turmeric on a wooden tray catches light differently than a heap. The powder seems to glow from inside, a hidden fire that asks only to be noticed. Paprika, when scattered, forms small ridges and valleys, like a landscape of red dunes. If you pause to see it, the mind follows without effort. Thoughts that were sharp or restless begin to ease. The body softens. Sleep creeps closer, guided by color more than by reason. Humans have always been drawn to the color of spices. Markets in distant lands displayed them like treasures. Piles of golden turmeric, deep red paprika, bright green cardamom. They caught the eye first. But perhaps unconsciously, humans noticed more than shape or quantity. They noticed the effect. The calm that spreads from seeing the colors, the quiet pull toward observation, the subtle shift in mood as the eye lingers too long. These colors were guides, teaching humans how to slow down even before they knew how. Saffron is the most fragile. One thread can glow like a spark in dim light. It holds sunlight inside. When the moon hits it at the right angle, it seems to pulse. The mind notices without thinking. There is a story inside it, carried through time, across mountains and seas. It whispers warmth and quiet, pulling attention toward small, still moments. Sleep moves closer because the mind cannot resist. Color has a language, and saffron speaks clearly to anyone who looks closely. Shadows add their own voice. They stretch across the piles of spices, making shapes that move as light shifts. Turmeric glows in contrast, paprika deepens in shadow. The interaction is subtle but undeniable. The mind notices patterns without conscious effort. The body follows. Each shadow, each curve, each glimmer of color contributes to a rhythm older than words. This rhythm does not demand attention. It invites it, gently, mysteriously, in ways humans rarely name. Even a simple act changes the story. When a hand moves across powdered spices, tiny clouds lift, exposing hidden shades. Turmeric yellow brightens. Paprika red deepens. Saffron threads catch light in new ways. A pinch of chili shows its warmth. The colors respond to movement as if alive, as if aware of attention. Humans feel the effect. Thoughts slow. The heart softens, muscles relax. The night grows deeper without any sound at all. Humans rarely notice these effects consciously. They see colors, perhaps think they are pretty and move on. But the mind does not move on so easily. It feels the warmth of yellow turmeric. It feels the depth of red paprika. It senses the fragility of saffron, the heat of chili. It reads these things before naming them, before reasoning. And in this quiet reading, the mind softens, the body relaxes, and sleep begins to approach without anyone asking. Color also carries history. Turmeric remembers the sun of faraway fields, the rain that nourished it, the hands that harvested it carefully, the wind that carried it across villages. Paprika remembers the soil of distant lands, the sun's heat, the patient drying under open skies. Saffron remembers mountains and sunrise, gentle hands and quiet hours. Chili remembers fire, earth, and heat. When the colors are noticed, even faintly, humans feel these histories without understanding why. Sleep comes closer, guided by memory hidden in pigment. The mind notices patterns too. Piles of yellow and red, scattered threads of gold and orange, shades of brown in tiny pods. These patterns seem random, but the brain reads them instinctively. It softens to follow. The eye lingers. The attention is gentle, not forced. Shadows bend around the shapes. The room becomes more than a room. It becomes a space where color, memory, and light meet. A small, hidden rhythm emerges that calms the mind naturally. Some colors are warmer than others. Turmeric glows like soft sun. Paprika hums heat in its depth. Saffron glimmers with quiet sunlight. Chili shows fire without shouting. The mind responds to these subtle cues automatically. It does not need explanation. It does not need instruction. The colors pull attention, and attention pulls calm. Calm opens the door to sleep. It is simple, but it works in ways humans have only noticed instinctively, never fully named. Even the smallest threads and specks matter. A single saffron thread can catch the eye and hold it. A tiny pinch of turmeric can glow more brightly than the heap around it. The shapes, textures, and colors combine to form a language of quiet attention. Shadows moving over the colors add a rhythm that matches breathing. The body relaxes without command. The mind softens. Sleep moves closer, not pushed, not forced, but invited by small, subtle signals of color and light. The interaction of color and shadow is also important. Turmeric glows brighter against the dark. Paprika deepens where shadows fall. Saffron seems to float above the pile, glowing faintly. Chili shows warmth where light meets powder. Even the faintest differences matter. They form a secret language that humans sense before thinking, before reasoning, before naming it. This is why sleep can come so quietly, carried by something humans rarely notice: colors of spice in the soft light of night. The jars themselves enhance the effect. Dark glass, wooden lids, small scratches and chips, they hold shadows and light in a way that changes the appearance of the spices. Turmeric glows brighter in one corner. Paprika deepens in another. Saffron threads appear golden and alive. The room is a subtle theater of color, shadow, and texture. The mind follows without effort. Attention softens. Muscles relax. Thoughts slow. Sleep creeps closer, quietly, gently, invisibly. And even when no one touches them, the colors speak. They glow. They hum. They pull the eye and the mind in ways too quiet to notice fully. Attention softens. The body follows. The room, the shadows, the moonlight, the colors, all combine in a rhythm older than language, older than humans. Sleep is not forced. It arrives because the colors pull gently, because the shadows stretch, because the mind is ready to notice without thinking. The most fascinating thing is how subtle it is. A single glance can carry it. A small movement of light can shift the color. The mind responds instantly. Calm spreads. Sleep approaches without urgency. It comes quietly, carried on the glow of turmeric, the hum of paprika, the shimmer of saffron, the heat of chili. Color alone can guide the body into rest, the mind into stillness, the night into calm. Cardamom crosses mountains. Its tiny green pods have traveled farther than most humans ever will. They have been carried by wind, by water, by hands that knew the value of patience. Each pod knows a new horizon, a sky it has never seen again, a sun it has longed for across centuries. The story of its journey is silent, almost invisible, yet it moves through the mind when noticed. Sleep comes closer when the mind follows such paths, quietly, without effort. Saffron floats across seas. Fragile threads, delicate and golden, have sailed from distant mountains to faraway lands. They have been packed in tiny boxes, hidden from the sun, carried in silence by hands that knew their worth. Each thread remembers the smell of distant earth, the weight of sunlight, the warmth of careful fingers. Their history cannot be told fully in words. It is too vast, but the mind can sense it. The mind can follow if it allows, and rest comes gently along with the journey. Even small seeds carry memory. A single black peppercorn can hold the echo of markets that no longer exist. A tiny clove can remember humid air and swaying palm trees. Nutmeg can recall the ocean, the sound of waves crashing gently on distant shores. The mind senses these things before it names them. Attention softens. The body relaxes. Sleep moves closer without a command. The seeds guide, unseen, patient, precise. Humans have always traded seeds like this. They have been treasures for empires, gifts between kings, offerings in quiet temples. Each journey a seed takes leaves a mark, invisible but real. Cardamom knows the cold of mountains, the warmth of kitchens. Saffron remembers both the desert sun and the cool stone floors of palaces. Even the smallest shift in weight, the faintest crack, can carry centuries of experience. When humans inhale the scent or touch the pod, these histories awaken. The journey of seeds is not always easy. Winds toss them over cliffs. Rain washes them through streams. Heat dries them, sun bleaches them. Still they survive. Still they hold their essence. Still they carry memory. Each scar, each crack, each slight discoloration is a story, a proof of endurance, a whisper from the past. When the mind notices, even a fraction, it relaxes because it senses resilience, patience, and quiet strength. Sleep follows naturally, drawn by patterns older than thought. Some seeds are deliberate travelers. Cardamom loves high mountains. It waits for cool air, slow wind, and careful hands to carry it across ranges. Saffron prefers gentle seas, floating carefully in small boxes. Cloves survive storms, tucked into bags pressed tightly. Nutmeg moves slowly, in ships and markets, from hand to hand, until it reaches kitchens and jars. Every movement adds history, and history becomes memory that humans can sense in subtle ways. Even the act of packaging matters. Seeds pressed in soft cloth, tied with string, or stored in wooden boxes retain the whispers of their journey. The faint scent of the past lingers. Humans may not notice it consciously. They may only feel a sense of calm when they touch the seeds or sprinkle them in water. The mind senses time and distance contained in a pod. Sleep approaches because the body recognizes patterns of endurance and travel that it instinctively trusts. The scents themselves tell stories. Cardamom carries a green, fresh aroma, a reminder of wet leaves and high altitudes. Saffron hums faintly of sunlight, earth, and distant winds. Cloves release deep, dark, almost smoky whispers. Nutmeg hints at warm kitchens and the faint sea breeze. When fire, water, or touch releases these scents, the history awakens. It is not just smell. It is memory, it is travel, it is life compressed into tiny seeds. Humans rarely notice the full extent of this. They see seeds as small, as simple, as ingredients. But inside each pod is a network of journeys, a record of movement across lands, oceans, and mountains. The mind senses it without explanation. The body responds, muscles loosen, thoughts slow. Sleep moves closer without a sound. The seeds have always known how to guide. Humans simply follow, often unknowingly. Some seeds are patient. They wait for the right moment to release their secrets. A pinch of cardamom crushed between fingers releases a scent that has traveled centuries. A saffron thread steeped in water hums with the memory of lands long gone. Cloves heated in a pan speak softly of distant islands. Nutmeg grated into milk releases stories of seas, ships, and sun. Each action awakens travel memories that calm the mind, guiding it toward stillness. The mind notices the paths even when the eyes do not. Patterns appear in memory as the seeds are smelled, touched, or crushed. The journey of the spice becomes the journey of thought. Mountains, seas, and markets fold into the quiet room. Attention softens, the heartbeat slows, muscles relax. Sleep follows, not forced but guided by histories hidden inside seeds. Seeds also carry energy. Travel teaches patience. Endurance gives them a rhythm. Every crack, every scar, every faded color is part of that rhythm. When humans interact with them, by grinding, crushing, or inhaling, the rhythm transfers subtly. The body responds. Breath slows, mind softens. Sleep approaches without command. The seeds are patient guides, showing that movement, time, and history can lead to calm. Even the smallest seeds can be surprising. A single black cardamom pod holds the cool of high mountains. A clove carries the heat of tropical storms. Saffron contains sunlight, even when hidden in a dark jar. Nutmeg remembers long journeys across oceans and markets. Each carries a story that the mind can feel, even without fully knowing it. Sleep comes naturally when these stories are sensed. Humans often underestimate the power of this subtle guidance. They focus on taste, on color, on fire, on scent. But history hidden in seeds is just as important. It teaches patience. It teaches endurance. It teaches stillness. The mind follows quietly. The body responds. Sleep is drawn in, softly, guided by patterns no one can name, patterns older than any human memory. Even as night grows darker, the seeds wait. Cardamom still carries mountains. Saffron still hums across seas. Cloves and nutmeg hold histories of storms, sunlight, markets, and hands. Their stories do not fade. They do not weaken. They exist silently, patiently, for anyone willing to notice. The mind relaxes because it recognizes continuity, resilience, and quiet motion. Sleep moves closer without effort. A single motion can awaken it all. Crushing a pod, brushing a jar, adding spice to water or milk. Any act can release centuries of history into the room. The scents rise, but more than that, the stories rise. Cardamom opens high valleys, saffron stretches across seas, cloves whisper of islands, nutmeg hums of distant shores. The mind senses the movement. The body softens. Sleep arrives quietly, carried on the unseen wings of seeds that have wandered longer than humans can imagine. These seeds are not just ingredients. They are travelers, storytellers, guides. They have seen more than most humans ever will. They know the way through mountains, across seas, and into quiet rooms. They are patient. They are silent. They pull attention gently, guiding the mind into calm spaces. Sleep comes not because it is forced, but because the mind follows the paths of seeds, worn smooth by centuries of unseen journeys. Inside cloves and nutmeg, invisible compounds wait. They are small, almost invisible, yet their power is enormous. The mind cannot see them. The eyes cannot find them, but the body senses them immediately. A single crushed clove releases warmth that moves along the chest, slow and steady, softening thought without effort. Nutmeg hums quietly when it meets warmth, easing the tension in the mind, as if it knows exactly where to touch. Sleep does not need to be invited. It follows the path the spices make. The magic is silent. It does not shout. It does not demand. It hums quietly like a river moving under ice, invisible yet persistent. Humans often underestimate the subtlety. They notice flavor or smell but not the quiet work happening inside. Cloves slow the pulse. Nutmeg softens mental edges. Cardamom eases the chest. Cinnamon spreads warmth and comfort. Each has its own method, each a unique teacher of stillness. Even the smallest amount is enough. A pinch of cloves, ground slowly between fingers, can release compounds that reach the mind almost instantly. The effect is gentle. The mind notices before it names it. Attention softens. Thoughts become less sharp. Muscles ease. Sleep comes closer, guided by invisible chemistry, by alchemy humans rarely understand, yet obey naturally. Humans have used this quiet alchemy for centuries without fully understanding it. They roasted cloves over low fire, grated nutmeg into milk, added cardamom to water, and noticed the calm that followed. They may not have known the compounds or chemistry, but they noticed the effect, and over time they trusted it. They repeated the process. Night after night, the mind softened. Sleep arrived gently. Even the process of heat matters. Compounds inside nutmeg and cloves are released more fully with warmth. A small pan on low fire, a cup of boiling water, a steaming mug of milk, all act as keys that unlock the power inside. The mind responds to warmth as well. Fire and heat are allies to the spices, helping them guide thought and body toward stillness. Humans feel the effect even if they do not know why. The smell is only part of it. Taste matters too, but in a subtler way. A sip of spiced milk, a small chew of a pod, the faint sweetness of cinnamon on the tongue, these actions awaken compounds that speak directly to the mind. They do not need words. They do not explain. They guide. They remind the body of quiet rhythms, softening the pulse, easing the mind, opening the door for rest. Cloves contain eugenol, a compound that calms, softens, and spreads warmth through the body. Nutmeg carries myristicin, subtle and mysterious, slowing racing thoughts without anyone noticing. Cardamom holds cineol, fresh and slightly sweet, easing tension and lifting stress quietly. Cinnamon spreads cinnamaldehyde, a warmth that spreads and invites stillness. Together, they form a silent orchestra, guiding the human mind toward rest without a single command. Even when the mind is full of thought, the alchemy works. A restless mind may try to resist. It may push, pull, and distract, but compounds inside the spices are patient. They do not shout. They do not force. They hum gently. They wait for attention, even the smallest notice, and then the effect spreads like water filling a quiet space. The body responds almost against conscious thought. Sleep grows closer, pulled by something older than logic, older than reasoning. Humans have discovered these effects by accident sometimes. A child chewing a clove to ease a cough may have felt calm afterward. Someone adding nutmeg to a dish at night may have noticed that sleep came sooner. Cardamom in tea, cinnamon in porridge all have their subtle influences. They are not obvious. They are not loud, but they work every time if noticed and often even if unnoticed. The effect spreads slowly. One crushed clove releases warmth. The mind softens. Nutmeg hums in the chest. Cardamom whispers freshness. Cinnamon lays comfort across the shoulders. Each compound interacts with the body differently. One targets pulse. Another eases thoughts. Another calms tension. Together, they create a quiet network of influence that pulls the mind toward stillness. Sleep follows naturally, softly, almost invisibly. Temperature, touch, and smell combine to awaken this alchemy. Warm milk releases compounds slowly. A hand crushing a pod releases oils. Steam carries scent through the room. The body senses it all together. The mind feels the rhythm, even without naming it. It is an instinct older than language. The effect is not dramatic, but it is undeniable. Muscles relax, thoughts ease, heartbeat slows, sleep becomes possible without effort. The mind begins to notice patterns. Cloves heat slowly, nutmeg hums quietly, cardamom rises like a soft green whisper, cinnamon spreads gentle warmth. The body responds naturally. Even when the mind resists, the compounds keep their rhythm. Attention softens. Breathing slows. Muscles loosen. Sleep moves closer, guided by small seeds, patient, unseen, and mysterious. Even jars of unopened spices hold energy. A cardamom pod, closed tight in a jar, contains compounds ready to be released. Nutmeg, untouched, hums with latent potential. Cloves wait quietly. When heat, touch, or water unlocks their compounds, the mind receives it immediately. The effect is cumulative. A room full of spices slowly transforms the mind, even if no one pays attention at first. It is invisible, patient, perfect. Some nights the effect is stronger. Perhaps the mind is weary, the body restless. Perhaps the room is quiet, the fire low. Then a pinch of nutmeg, a few cloves, and the effect spreads faster, deeper. The mind notices more easily. Muscles relax more quickly. Thoughts slow without effort. Sleep comes as a gentle visitor, guided by something unseen, carried by compounds, ancient, quiet, and perfectly designed. Even the smallest detail matters. Grinding a single clove releases more than flavor. Heating a pinch of cinnamon releases warmth and comfort. Steeping cardamom brings freshness that the mind can feel without naming it. Nutmeg grated into milk spreads a soft hum of calm. Each small action unlocks hidden alchemy, quietly, invisibly, patiently, drawing sleep closer with each breath, each inhalation, each touch. Humans rarely understand why it works. They notice calm, warmth, comfort, but not the compounds. They notice sleep comes sooner, but not the alchemy inside the seeds. Science can explain part of it. History can trace it. Chemistry can measure it. But the effect on the mind, the quiet softening, the invisible guidance of attention and pulse, that is something older than science. Something humans feel instinctively. The effect spreads like a secret through the body. Pulse slows, thoughts soften, muscles relax, breathing eases. The mind follows quietly, gently, without asking. Sleep approaches not because it is commanded, but because the body is ready, guided by the patient, invisible work of cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, and cardamom. They are teachers of quiet, masters of stillness, hidden inside small seeds that most humans underestimate. And even when the mind notices only a little, the effect is enough. The compounds are patient. They work slowly. They wait for attention, a small touch, a pinch, a cup of warm liquid. Then they release their secret power. The body responds. The mind eases. Sleep arrives quietly, pulled by invisible forces, by history, by chemistry, and by something older than humans, something that knows exactly how to calm the mind and body without ever speaking a word. Night gardens breathe slowly. Shadows stretch over leaves, moving gently as if the darkness itself has a rhythm. Spices rest among them, hidden yet alive. Basil leans lightly toward the cool night air. Rosemary bends slightly, releasing hints of pine and earth. Even the tiniest petals seem to shiver in silence, spreading calm through motion the mind can feel but cannot name. The garden does not speak aloud. It does not announce itself. Yet every sense is touched. Sleep comes quietly here, guided by whispers of unseen movement. Moonlight falls softly on rows of mint and oregano. Their leaves glint faintly, revealing tiny veins like hidden rivers. Night air carries their subtle fragrance, rising in small waves that reach the mind before the nose fully notices. The scent is gentle but persistent, a reminder of life moving slowly even in darkness. Humans do not need to see everything to feel it. Attention softens naturally when motion is sensed, even when it is almost invisible. Flowers bloom quietly at night, releasing scents that hide in shadows. Jasmine curls open, releasing faint sweetness. Marigold petals vibrate slightly with the wind, unnoticed but felt. Chamomile leans toward the earth as if bowing to the night. Each movement is small, subtle, but it has a rhythm. The mind notices the pattern before it can name it. Muscle tension eases. Thoughts become less insistent. Sleep moves closer, guided by motion and fragrance, even without awareness. Spices themselves respond to the night. Cardamom pods sit quietly, their shells warm from the day but cooling now. Cloves tilt slightly, almost imperceptibly, releasing compounds that soften the pulse. Nutmeg rests, its scent faint but waiting. Even turmeric seems to glow a little in the shadows, reflecting the faint moonlight. The garden, filled with spices and plants, becomes a quiet theater of motion and scent. Each shift, each tremble, carries tiny whispers that invite calm. A breeze passes through the garden, gentle and careful. Leaves brush together, creating tiny sounds that blend with silence. Petals sway. Small seeds move slightly in their beds. The motion is almost imperceptible, yet it is enough. Humans notice it without realizing. The body softens. Breathing slows. Attention quiets. Sleep approaches because motion has a subtle way of signaling stillness to the mind. It is not the darkness alone that brings rest, but the quiet movements the darkness allows. Even insects contribute. Tiny beetles crawl along leaves, lifting minute particles of pollen. A moth brushes a petal. These small motions add to the rhythm of the garden, almost invisible, almost unheard. Yet they are part of the language of calm. Humans may not see them, may not notice them at all, but the mind senses patterns of gentle motion and responds. The heart softens, muscles relax, sleep moves closer, guided by small, unseen rhythms. Night gardens have their own hierarchy of senses. Some fragrances float higher, some linger low. Motion is equally varied. A tall rosemary branch sways with one rhythm. A low-time plant shivers in another. Leaves of basil bend differently. The mind perceives these differences even unconsciously. Patterns of motion and scent form a subtle network that guides thought toward quiet. Each movement is a small signal. The world is safe. The night is calm. Rest is possible. Some spices hum without sound. Cloves, when brushed lightly by leaves or wind, release invisible compounds that ease the body. Nutmeg releases warmth when air passes over it. Cardamom offers a faint green freshness. Cinnamon, resting near petals, spreads a soft comfort that humans notice without knowing why. These are alchemies of the night, small movements and scents that calm the mind and guide attention naturally toward stillness. Even shadows have motion in the garden. Moonlight moves slowly across leaves as clouds pass overhead. Shadows stretch and shrink. Petals darken, then lighten. The patterns shift subtly, but the mind notices. Attention softens. Breathing slows. The body follows. Sleep arrives gently, carried by things too small or quiet to see clearly, but too consistent to ignore. Movement unseen can calm the mind more effectively than silence alone. Spices interact with plants in surprising ways. A mint leaf brushing a clove releases a new scent. Basil moving near a rosemary branch carries warmth and freshness in a pattern unique to the moment. Chamomile petals bending slightly release compounds that ease thought. Even small interactions matter. Humans may not notice consciously, but the body does. Attention softens, muscles release. Sleep approaches as a natural consequence of motion and chemistry combined. Some flowers only release their scent when touched by movement. Jasmine and marigold are like that. A faint brush of wind, a tiny vibration of leaves, and the compounds awaken. The mind notices subtly before awareness catches up. Thoughts slow, muscles relax, breathing eases. Sleep moves closer as the body responds to tiny, invisible motions that carry calm throughout the nervous system. Spices can amplify this effect. Cardamom, nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, they all respond to the night differently. A small motion can release oils trapped inside. A brush of leaves or a shift in wind is enough to activate them. Their scent combines with the motion of the garden, forming a quiet rhythm. Humans feel it instinctively. Breathing softens. Heart beats slow. Attention releases. Sleep comes quietly, guided by the subtle music of unseen movement. Even the soil contributes. Tiny shifts under roots, the movement of water underground, the settling of earth overnight, all of it adds to the rhythm. Seeds sense it, plants sense it, spices sense it. Humans feel it too, indirectly, through perception, instinct, and subtle awareness. The body relaxes as the mind registers the gentle order, the quiet signals, and the rhythm of life moving without fuss. Night gardens teach patience. Motion is slow, scents rise gradually, shadows change carefully. The body learns to follow this quiet pace. Thoughts are not forced to slow, they follow naturally. Muscles are not commanded to relax. They obey instinctively. Sleep comes as a gentle partner, not a task. The garden, in motion and stillness, leads the way, showing that calm can exist in movement as well as in quiet. Even small rituals enhance the effect. Brushing a leaf gently, sprinkling a few crushed spices, shaking petals lightly, the tiniest actions interact with motion and scent in the garden. Humans notice, even faintly. The mind softens. The body eases. Attention follows. Sleep comes without asking, guided by small movements, subtle scents, and the rhythm of night. Motion unseen is mysterious. Humans rarely realize how powerful it is. Petals vibrating softly, leaves brushing, seeds moving in soil, smoke curling through air. These tiny, invisible patterns reach the mind. They guide thought toward calm. They remind the body that the world is safe. They whisper of patience, quiet, and time. Sleep follows naturally, drawn by rhythms humans cannot fully see but can feel in the body and mind. Even without noticing, humans respond. A soft breeze moves a basil leaf. A clove shifts slightly in the corner of a garden bed. A saffron thread leans gently as night air passes. The body senses the subtle cues. Attention softens. Muscles relax. Breathing eases. Sleep approaches quietly, led by the hidden patterns of motion and scent that fill the night garden with calm. Everything is connected. Flowers, leaves, spices, soil, air, all create a subtle orchestra of quiet movement. Each element contributes to a rhythm that the mind recognizes instinctively. Humans do not need to name it, understand it, or measure it. Their body follows the cues naturally. Sleep arrives, gentle, patient, inevitable, carried by motion felt but unseen. The night garden does not hurry. The rhythm is slow. The motion is small, yet it is enough. Humans do not notice the power fully, but the body does. The mind is guided by countless small movements, the soft swaying of leaves, the subtle vibration of petals, the tiny release of scent. Sleep comes quietly, as if it were always there, waiting, pulled along by a rhythm older than words and older than humans. A pinch of cinnamon touches the tongue, and suddenly the mind remembers. Not fully, not clearly, but in small flashes. Forgotten kitchens, warm sunlight through windows, the smell of baking, the quiet chatter of hands and utensils. Memory comes first as feeling, then as faint images. Flavor stirs memory more than thought. It does not demand attention. It simply arrives, gentle and insistent, pulling the mind into a quiet rhythm that feels like calm before sleep. Nutmeg hums differently. It carries distant fires, nights in kitchens with flames low and steady wooden beams warming slowly over time. The taste is faint but persistent. The mind notices patterns: warmth, comfort, patience. Even imagined taste can awaken this rhythm. A single thought of nutmeg, the image of its light brown shell, and the mind begins to soften. Breathing slows without effort. Muscles ease. Sleep creeps closer. Cardamom speaks softly on the tongue. Its green pods carry freshness that mingles with warmth. A chew or a pinch dissolves into subtle sweetness and faint sharpness. Flavor reaches past conscious thought into memory. It recalls long journeys, markets under hot sun, hands sifting through tiny seeds. Even without real experience, the mind senses movement through time. Calm arrives with it. The body relaxes. Sleep grows nearer. Cinnamon and nutmeg together are like old friends. They carry history and rhythm in flavor. A sip of warm milk with both spices feels familiar, even if memory does not name it. The mind notices patterns before thought. Attention softens. The body responds. Even the imagination of taste can unlock memories, emotions, and a quiet sense of ease. Sleep follows the gentle tug of flavor, patiently, invisibly, unforced. Even the act of preparation matters. Grating nutmeg, crushing cinnamon sticks, sprinkling cardamom into tea, all release small compounds that the tongue and nose sense immediately. But more than the compounds, it is the rhythm of action. The mind remembers movement, human touch, small rituals. Taste becomes connected to history. Flavor does not act alone. It awakens stories hidden in memory, stories the mind responds to instinctively, easing attention and pulling the body toward calm. Humans often forget how powerful taste is. A single spice can reach farther than words. It can bypass thought, bypass reasoning, and touch memory directly. Cinnamon touches warmth in the chest. Nutmeg hums quietly in the mind. Cardamom lifts the heart slightly, softens tension. The body responds naturally, even when the mind doubts it. Sleep becomes possible because taste has guided the mind, even before thought arrived. Flavor carries time. Cinnamon remembers trees in distant lands, sun stretching over orchards. Nutmeg recalls the heat of tropical islands, the sound of ocean waves. Cardamom senses mountain air, cool winds, and morning light. When these flavors meet the tongue, even briefly, the mind receives centuries compressed into a single moment. Attention softens. Muscles loosen. Breathing becomes gentler. Sleep is drawn toward the mind without effort, carried by taste and memory together. Even imagined taste works. Thinking of sprinkling cinnamon on bread, visualizing the warmth of nutmeg in milk, recalling cardamom pods cracked in the hand, these small mental acts awaken the same calm. Flavor does not need to be real to guide the mind. The mind follows instinctively. Attention slows, the body obeys. Sleep creeps closer, subtle and inevitable. Sweetness, warmth, sharpness, freshness. Each aspect of flavor has its own influence. Cinnamon spreads warmth. Nutmeg hums quietly, softening edges. Cardamom lifts freshness. Cloves release depth and calm. Taste is more than sensation. It is rhythm, movement, memory, and comfort. Each spice adds a layer, a note, in an invisible composition that eases the body and mind together toward rest. The mind often remembers kitchens without realizing it. A pinch of cinnamon recalls an old stove, a pan in motion, sunlight reflecting off tiles. Nutmeg carries the sound of fire crackling gently. Cardamom evokes markets far away, the faint murmur of trade and conversation. Flavor taps into memory without explanation, drawing attention gently to images and feelings that calm thought. Sleep follows these traces quietly, naturally, patiently. Even small differences matter. A fresh pinch of cinnamon hums differently than an old one. Nutmeg grated carefully releases warmth that lingers longer. Cardamom cracked between fingers tastes sharper, fresher, more alive. The body responds to these subtleties often without conscious thought. Muscles ease, breathing slows, attention softens. Sleep arrives quietly, pulled by the fine threads of taste and memory intertwined. Taste also works with other senses. Smell rises as flavor touches the tongue. Touch guides attention as pods are crushed or grated. Visual memory connects color to flavor. All senses combine into a quiet, immersive rhythm. Cinnamon looks warm, smells faintly of earth and sun, tastes sweet and spicy, and the mind absorbs it all. Nutmeg hums in the chest. Cardamom lifts gently. Sleep approaches, guided by this multisensory orchestra of small, familiar actions and sensations. Even a single grain can matter. A tiny seed of cardamom crushed releases enough aroma to pull attention, slow thought, ease muscle tension. A dusting of cinnamon hums with warmth. A pinch of nutmeg touches the mind's edge, softening patterns of tension. Sleep comes quietly, not forced, drawn by actions and tastes that humans have ignored or underestimated for centuries. The power of taste is subtle. Humans often taste for pleasure, forgetting that flavor can guide mind and body to calm. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, and saffron carry more than aroma and warmth. They carry rhythm, history, patience, and quiet energy that the body instinctively recognizes. Sleep is not commanded. It follows the cues naturally, carried by taste into calm spaces inside the mind. Even imagined meals work. Thinking of cinnamon in hot milk, nutmeg in pudding, cardamom in tea, each sparks memory in the mind and triggers calm. Attention softens, muscles ease, the heartbeat slows. Sleep approaches without urgency, pulled by flavor, memory, and imagination combined. Taste has a language humans rarely fully notice, but the body always understands. The mind notices patterns in flavor even subconsciously. Cinnamon always hums warmth. Nutmeg always softens edges. Cardamom always lifts freshness. Cloves deepen calm. Each taste, each combination forms invisible maps that the body reads instinctively. Attention relaxes. Breath slows. Muscles soften. Sleep arrives, carried by rhythm, history, and flavor working quietly together. Humans have always relied on taste without fully understanding why. Spices in food, beverages, or small rituals have been guides for calm for centuries. Recipes passed down through generations were more than flavor. They were subtle tools to ease thought and body, to prepare for rest, to pull the mind toward stillness. The body remembers these rhythms instinctively, even when the mind forgets. Even the smallest pinch is enough. Cinnamon dusted over milk, nutmeg grated lightly, cardamom cracked between fingers, all release calm. The mind softens without knowing why. The body follows instinctively. Sleep comes quietly, drawn along invisible paths of flavor and memory, guided by centuries of human practice and natural rhythm in spices. Flavor reaches the deepest corners of memory. Forgotten kitchens, distant fires, markets under the sun, hands long gone, they all hum quietly in the mind. Taste is the key. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, they unlock these corners. Attention softens. Muscles relax. Breathing slows. Sleep approaches naturally, guided by invisible threads of memory carried by taste. Even when a spice is tasted alone, it tells a story. Cinnamon hums warmth. Nutmeg whispers comfort. Cardamom breathes freshness. Cloves deepen calm. Each contributes a note. Together they form a quiet symphony. The mind follows rhythm even without awareness. The body obeys instinctively. Sleep comes gently, pulled along by flavor, memory, and the quiet power hidden inside tiny seeds. Cinnamon has seen centuries pass. Its bark grew slowly on distant trees long before humans recorded history. Mountains rose and fell, rivers carved paths through lands, kingdoms were built and lost, all while cinnamon waited quietly, holding memory in its grains. It does not speak, but its presence carries knowledge of time far older than any human memory. The mind senses this without realizing it. Sleep follows, guided by a quiet understanding that some things outlast thought itself. Cardamom has traveled kingdoms. From high mountains to bustling markets, from traders' hands to kitchens, each green pod carries stories that no single human could hold. Its aroma is not just scent, it is time in motion. The faint sweetness on the tongue hums of roads and seas, of mountains crossed, of hands that have held it for decades. Even imagining its journey pulls attention inward, softening thought, inviting calm and guiding the mind toward rest. Cloves are islands of history. Each small pod contains memory of storms, sun, and distant lands. Traders carried them across oceans, tucked in small sacks, surviving long voyages. The mind does not need to know the details. A single inhale is enough. The body relaxes, attention softens, and the rhythm of time held inside the spice whispers quietly, nudging the mind toward sleep. Nutmeg remembers tropical heat. It recalls the sound of waves against ships, the warmth of sun on leaves, the patience of hands that picked it carefully. Centuries of travel and use are encoded in every vein, every tiny crack. When humans touch or taste it, this history is transmitted quietly. The effect is subtle. A faint hum of calm spreads through the body. Muscles ease. Breathing slows. Sleep draws near, guided by knowledge older than thought. Even saffron carries the weight of time. Delicate threads harvested from tiny flowers, they have traveled across lands for hundreds of years. Kings prized them. Farmers nurtured them. Each thread remembers sun, soil, and human touch. Even in a jar hidden from light, saffron hums with history. The mind senses it. Attention softens. Sleep follows naturally, pulled by centuries compressed into fragile golden strands. Some spices have witnessed entire cultures rise and fall. Cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, cloves, and saffron, they have survived fires, floods, and markets lost to memory. Their essence remains. Their grains are tiny time capsules. The mind notices subtle patterns in smell, touch, or taste. Even imagining them can awaken the effect. Calm spreads through the body. The heartbeat slows. Muscles relax. Sleep approaches quietly, guided by history itself. Time does not age these spices in the usual way. A cinnamon stick harvested a century ago can still release warmth. Cardamom picked decades ago carries the same freshness if stored carefully. Nutmeg retains its quiet hum. Cloves hold the depth of distant storms. Saffron threads release sunlight even when years old. Humans cannot fully measure this, but the mind and body respond instinctively. Attention softens. Muscles release tension. Sleep follows, guided by experience hidden in spice. Even when humans are unaware, the spices continue their work. Cinnamon releases compounds that calm the body. Cardamom hums freshness. Cloves ease tension. Nutmeg softens thought. Saffron lifts warmth subtly. These effects are layered with history. The body reacts even if the mind does not name the cause. Sleep comes naturally, guided by memory that stretches across centuries. Some spices interact silently with time itself. Cinnamon may have been ground for a feast hundreds of years ago. Cardamom may have traveled from one kingdom to another, untouched for decades. Nutmeg might have been tucked in a jar for generations. Cloves have felt storms at sea. Saffron has rested in cool, dark corners, absorbing nothing but patience. The mind senses echoes of these experiences, even faintly. Muscles release, breathing slows, sleep draws closer, carried by whispers of history. Even the smallest pod is a teacher of patience. Its growth took years. Its journey may have taken months. Its essence remains long after humans forget. The body recognizes this subtly. Attention softens. Thoughts lose sharp edges. Sleep arrives quietly, drawn by rhythms older than humans, carried silently in seeds that remember more than we ever will. Even the aroma carries centuries. Cinnamon, when crushed, releases faint memories of forests long gone. Cardamom spreads freshness that whispers of mountain winds. Cloves hum with storms from distant islands. Nutmeg releases tropical heat that feels like sun through time. Saffron shines faintly with sunlight captured from faraway lands. Each scent is a message from history. The mind absorbs it instinctively. The body responds. Sleep follows quietly, guided by invisible signals. The mind notices patterns without trying. Cinnamon warms, nutmeg hums, cardamom lifts, cloves deepen, saffron glows. Each spice contributes a note in a quiet symphony of memory and calm. Humans may not understand how or why, but the body follows. Breathing slows, muscles soften, attention releases. Sleep arrives gently, guided by the weight of centuries held in small seeds. Even without tasting or touching, simply imagining spices can awaken history. Visualizing cinnamon bark, cardamom pods, saffron threads, cloves, or nutmeg can pull attention inward. The mind recalls markets, kitchens, mountains, islands, oceans. Calm spreads subtly. Muscle tension fades. Breath deepens. Sleep draws near, carried by the unseen journeys and memories contained in spice. Some nights the effect is stronger. Perhaps the mind is weary. Perhaps the body is restless. Then a simple pinch, a single aroma, or the memory of flavor awakens centuries. Cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, cloves, and saffron guide thought and body into calm. The mind softens. Muscles relax. Breathing eases. Sleep moves closer, patient and inevitable, carried on the quiet, persistent memory of time held inside tiny grains. Even a small combination enhances the effect. Cinnamon and nutmeg together bring warmth and hum. Cardamom lifts and refreshes. Cloves deepen calm. Saffron adds sunlight and patience. The body senses subtle layers of influence, even if the mind does not consciously notice. Sleep is drawn naturally, gently, and with perfect timing, guided by spices that have witnessed more than humans can ever imagine. Time is invisible, yet humans feel it through spices. Each pod, each thread, each grain carries decades or centuries. Cinnamon hums warmth. Cardamom breathes freshness. Nutmeg softens thought. Cloves deepen calm. Saffron glows faintly. Humans may not name it, they may not see it. But the mind responds, muscles relax, breathing slows, and sleep follows the quiet wisdom held in history. Even when jars are sealed, the effect exists. Cardamom waits quietly. Cinnamon rests in darkness. Cloves hum softly. Nutmeg holds the hum of tropical sun. Saffron stores light from distant lands. Their memory is patient, invisible, and always present. The body reacts subtly. Attention softens. Sleep arrives without command, drawn by the silent continuity of time held in seeds. The mind notices the lessons without effort: patience, endurance, quiet presence. Even small movements or scents awaken these lessons. Muscles release tension. Heart beats slow. Breath eases. Sleep approaches naturally, guided by spices that have witnessed more than humans, carrying memory, time, and calm compressed into tiny grains. Even a single seed can guide the mind. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, saffron. They all carry history in ways humans cannot fully measure. The mind senses the rhythm. The body obeys. Sleep is drawn, quiet and gentle, carried on centuries of memory, experience, and the patient, persistent essence of spices that have outlasted empires. Grinding, sprinkling, steeping. Hands move slowly over spice dust. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, tiny grains that respond to touch, hum quietly under fingertips, and release scent that bends the mind toward calm. Each movement is small, deliberate, and precise, yet it carries power. The night watches without interrupting. Shadows stretch across the table. Light flickers softly. The mind notices rhythm before understanding it. Attention softens. Muscles ease. Sleep comes quietly, guided by the unseen pattern of ritual. Repetition matters. Crushing a clove, rolling a cinnamon stick between fingers, cracking open cardamom pods. These movements seem ordinary, yet each repeats a pattern older than humans. The body responds instinctively. The pulse slows. Breath deepens. Even the mind, busy with thought, begins to notice subtle pauses, small intervals of stillness. The rhythm of hands mirrors the rhythm of nature. The mind follows without trying. Sleep draws closer, patient and unforced. Steeping spices in warm water or milk is another ritual. The liquid becomes a medium for scent and flavor to spread slowly. Cinnamon curls gently in the cup. Nutmeg hums faintly. Cardamom floats lightly, releasing freshness into the air. Cloves sink and sway, releasing depth. Saffron threads unfold tiny shafts of golden sunlight. Each element interacts silently, creating a quiet orchestra. The mind absorbs it unconsciously. Muscles soften. Breathing eases. Sleep arrives carried on the rhythm of simple actions. Even the smallest gestures count. Sprinkling a pinch of spice across a surface, rubbing it lightly between fingertips, watching powdered trails fall. These movements echo instincts older than language. They repeat in silence. They create patterns that the body and mind recognize naturally. Sleep follows, not forced but invited, guided by hands, scent, and subtle attention. The night itself participates. Shadows shift slowly as clouds pass across the moon. The air moves faintly, carrying fragrance. Flickers of candlelight or firelight dance across jars and surfaces. Each motion is tiny, almost imperceptible, yet the mind notices. Rhythm of action meets rhythm of environment. Muscles release tension. Thoughts soften. Breath becomes calm. Sleep creeps closer, led by this quiet harmony between human action and night itself. Grinding spices releases compounds that affect body and mind. Cinnamon spreads warmth. Cloves deepen calm. Nutmeg hums gently. Cardamom lifts freshness. Even the motion of grinding adds to the effect. Hands rotating slowly, pressure changing slightly, powders breaking down. These motions unlock quiet alchemy hidden for centuries. The mind responds. The body relaxes. Sleep approaches, drawn by compounds and rhythm together. Rituals are layered with memory. A hand crushing nutmeg might recall an old kitchen, a grandmother stirring milk with cinnamon, a market full of cardamom pods. Each movement triggers memory without naming it. The mind softens. Muscles release tension. Breathing slows. Sleep is guided naturally, carried by the echoes of past actions embedded in gestures repeated over time. Even when rituals are unseen, their effect remains. Crushing spices silently in a jar, shaking a small pouch over a dish, rubbing pods gently. These simple, repeated actions send signals the body understands. Rhythm communicates with the nervous system. Calm spreads through muscles. Attention eases. Sleep follows, gentle and patient, without the mind needing to demand it. The smell of spices interacts with movement. Grinding releases warmth from cinnamon, hum from nutmeg, freshness from cardamom, depth from cloves. Each scent is a note in an invisible symphony. Repetition of gestures amplifies the effect. Even small inhalations carry it through the body. The mind absorbs the rhythm unconsciously. Muscles relax. Breathing slows. Sleep arrives quietly, guided by ritual and subtle chemistry. Lighting matters too. Candlelight, firelight, or moonlight flickers across spice jars. Shadows move slowly over surfaces. Each tiny motion changes perception. Hands repeating gestures under changing light notice differences, even if faintly. The mind softens. The body follows instinctively. Muscles ease. Breath becomes calm. Sleep arrives guided by rhythm, scent, and observation of subtle motion. Some rituals combine multiple senses. Touch, smell, sight, and even sound converge. The faint scratch of grinding, the smell of released compounds, the warmth felt in hands, the sight of color in powders, all form a quiet orchestra. The mind notices patterns naturally. Attention softens. Muscles release tension. Sleep draws near, guided by layers of simple, repeated actions, harmonized with subtle environment. Repetition itself is a teacher. A pinch here, a stir there, a gentle roll of a spice pod. These gestures repeat and the mind gradually adapts. Muscle tension softens. Breathing steadies. Attention quiets. Sleep follows the rhythm of action and inaction together. Even without noticing, the mind responds to consistency, to order, to ritual repeated in silence. Even tiny variations matter. Grinding more or less, sprinkling faster or slower, adjusting pressure slightly. These subtle differences create new rhythms. The mind tunes itself to these small patterns even unconsciously. Muscles release tension gradually. Breath slows naturally. Sleep creeps closer, guided by patience and rhythm carried by repeated gestures. The night encourages stillness. The darkness amplifies subtle motion. Flickers of light, faint air currents, and scent combine with human action to create a space where the mind can soften. Movements of hands become meditation. Crushing, sprinkling, steeping, they are quiet rituals teaching calm through repetition. Sleep is invited naturally, carried by rhythm, scent, and attention combined. Even small hands, small gestures, small amounts of spice have effect. A pinch of cinnamon, a crushed cardamom pod, a tiny grating of nutmeg, all add to the rhythm. Each repeated gesture communicates patience, calm, and quiet. Attention softens. Muscles relax. Breathing eases. Sleep approaches steadily, drawn by repetition, ritual, and quiet alchemy combined. Humans have relied on these rituals for centuries without naming them. Preparing spices at night, crushing, grinding, steeping, sprinkling. They created patterns that guided mind and body toward calm. The body remembers these gestures instinctively. Attention eases. Muscles release tension. Breathing slows. Sleep arrives quietly, naturally, guided by repetition of action older than language. Even without conscious focus, repeated movements matter. The mind notices rhythm, consistency, and order. The body responds automatically. Muscles relax. Attention softens. Breath deepens. Sleep draws near, carried by rituals in darkness, by repetition, and by the quiet power of simple gestures. Every motion communicates patience. Every gesture echoes instinct. Even simple rituals with spices teach calm. Grinding, sprinkling, steeping, they pull mind and body into harmony. Attention releases. Muscles soften. Breathing eases. Sleep follows, patient and inevitable, guided by ritual, darkness, and subtle, unseen motion. Small gestures, repeated over time, carry invisible wisdom. Crushing cinnamon, rolling cardamom pods, grating nutmeg, sprinkling cloves, steeping saffron threads. These actions repeat quietly. The mind absorbs rhythm. Muscles release tension. Breath slows. Sleep comes naturally, carried by repetition, ritual, and subtle alchemy of spices interacting with darkness. The night watches. Every movement leaves its mark. Not on paper, not in memory exactly, but in rhythm, in body, in mind. The repeated gestures, the flow of scent and touch, the gentle hum of spices under fingers, they all combine into a quiet, invisible guidance. Attention softens, muscles relax, breathing eases. Sleep arrives patient, gentle, and inevitable. All senses converge. Smell, taste, color, motion, ritual, they weave together in a pattern that is invisible yet undeniable. Cinnamon hums warmth, cardamom lifts freshness, nutmeg softens the mind, cloves deepen calm, saffron shines faintly. Every element interacts with the others quietly, like threads crossing in a hidden web. The body feels it first. Attention softens, muscles release, breath slows. Sleep follows naturally, drawn by something the mind cannot name. The invisible thread moves through space and time. It begins in the spice jars, in seeds and powders, in the smallest cracks of shells. It flows into air, rises with warmth, and travels through movement. Hands grind, crush, sprinkle, and steep. Aroma spreads. Colors shift in moonlight or firelight. Taste awakens memory. Every gesture adds to the rhythm, every compound amplifies the pull. Humans are part of this without knowing it. The thread winds quietly, tugging gently toward rest. Even the faintest scent carries it. A whiff of cinnamon, barely noticeable, can trigger calm. The mind recognizes patterns before thought catches up. Nutmeg hums, cardamom lifts, cloves deepen. Saffron threads release sunlight faintly captured from faraway lands. Each element adds weight to the invisible network, guiding attention toward calm. Muscles release tension. Breath becomes soft. Sleep arrives quietly, carried along threads humans cannot see but instinctively feel. Motion strengthens the connection. A hand brushing a basil leaf, fingers crushing a pod, rolling a cinnamon stick, stirring warm liquid with spices floating. Each gesture sends tiny pulses into the web. Subtle vibrations spread through air, through scent, through touch. The body senses them without naming them. Muscles relax, heartbeat slows, attention softens. Sleep is drawn forward by patterns older than memory, guided by invisible threads connecting body, mind, and spices. Colors join in. Golden turmeric glows faintly. Paprika glimmers in shadows. Saffron threads shine in faint light. Even powdered cinnamon or cardamom shows warmth and depth. Visual cues are subtle, almost ignored, yet they add to the invisible network. The mind cannot resist responding. Attention softens, muscles release, breathing deepens. Sleep is guided by combinations of senses interacting silently, a pattern too delicate to name but too persistent to ignore. Taste becomes part of the web. Nutmeg hums of distant fires. Cinnamon recalls forgotten kitchens. Cardamom carries freshness of mountains. Cloves deepen calm. Saffron adds sunlight. Even a small pinch, tasted or imagined, connects the mind and body to the network. Memory awakens quietly. Attention eases. Muscles relax. Breath slows. Sleep moves naturally along the thread, patient, gentle, inevitable. Ritual strengthens it. Repeated gestures, crushing, sprinkling, steeping, echo instincts older than language. They add rhythm, reinforcing the invisible thread. Even if the mind wanders, the body senses order. Muscles release tension. Breathing becomes calm. Attention softens. Sleep is invited, carried by repetition, scent, touch, color, and taste, all bound together in a hidden web humans rarely see but always respond to. The night is an active participant. Shadows stretch and shrink. Moonlight passes over jars and leaves. Air moves faintly, carrying aromas across small spaces. Each subtle change becomes a pulse in the network. Motion, scent, color, taste, and ritual combine to form patterns that the mind recognizes instinctively. Muscles soften, attention eases, breath deepens. Sleep arrives quietly, drawn by a rhythm that humans cannot fully see but instinctively obey. Even silence contributes. In quiet moments, the invisible thread becomes more apparent. A single breath can carry scent deeper into memory. A flick of light can highlight a tiny detail in spice powder. Fingers resting on a cinnamon stick can transmit calm without motion. The mind responds to subtle cues. Muscles release tension. Breathing slows. Sleep is guided naturally, carried by an unseen web connecting every small element. Memory becomes part of the network. Cinnamon carries centuries. Cardamom travels mountains and markets. Cloves hum of distant islands. Nutmeg remembers tropical sun. Saffron reflects light from faraway lands. Each spice holds stories encoded in scent, color, and touch. When humans interact with them, even for a moment, they become part of the invisible web. The body responds instinctively. Attention softens. Muscles release. Sleep is drawn gently forward, carried by threads of history, chemistry, and subtle rhythm. Even imagined spices matter. Thinking of cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, or saffron activates memory and attention. The mind senses pattern, even without real contact. Muscles release tension. Breath slows. Sleep moves forward quietly, guided by threads that exist beyond sight and beyond conscious thought. Every imagined gesture, every faint memory, strengthens the invisible web. Small interactions amplify the effect. Crushing a pod near a candle flicker, sprinkling a pinch over warm liquid, rolling cinnamon between fingers. Each subtle act sends pulses along the hidden network. Scent rises, light shifts, colors glimmer, taste awakens memory. The mind notices patterns unconsciously, muscles release, breath eases. Sleep is drawn closer, patient, gentle, inevitable. The invisible thread carries patience. It does not rush. The web moves slowly, gently tugging attention, softening thought, easing muscle tension. Each pulse is small but persistent. The mind does not resist because it cannot name the force. The body follows naturally. Breath slows. Muscles relax. Sleep arrives, carried along invisible paths woven from scent, touch, color, taste, and ritual. Even multiple senses interact silently. Motion adds to smell. Color adds to taste. Memory adds to rhythm. Touch reinforces observation. All senses converge in a single, delicate network. Humans may not name it. They may not see it. Yet attention softens, muscles release, breath becomes calm. Sleep follows, led by threads older than language, invisible but undeniable. The network adapts. Small changes, flickers of light, slight shifts in spice position, a new scent released, are absorbed. The web moves silently, adjusting, reinforcing rhythm. The mind notices without naming it. Muscles release. Breathing slows. Sleep is drawn along, guided by a subtle intelligence built from centuries of interaction, instinct, and pattern. Even a small jar of spices can anchor the invisible thread. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, saffron, they all radiate calm, history, and rhythm. Touching one or smelling it activates the network. Memory responds. Attention softens. Muscles relax. Sleep is invited quietly, patiently, gently, drawn along paths the mind cannot trace but the body obeys instinctively. Even as the night deepens, the thread holds. Shadows lengthen. Air moves faintly. Moonlight passes across jars and leaves. Scent lingers. Taste recalls memory. Ritual repeats in quiet, deliberate gestures. The body, mind, and senses remain connected to the invisible web. Muscles release tension. Breath slows. Attention softens. Sleep moves naturally, guided by threads that humans cannot see but always respond to. Everything is connected. The smallest gesture matters. The faintest scent counts. A glimmer of color, a pinch of spice, a rolling of seeds, these invisible threads converge. The mind relaxes, muscles release, breathing eases. Sleep arrives gently, pulled forward by a network older than memory, carried silently in motion, ritual, scent, taste, and color combined. Even without noticing, humans are part of the web. The invisible thread binds all elements together. Cinnamon hums, cardamom lifts, nutmeg softens, cloves deepen, saffron glows. Each element strengthens rhythm. Attention releases. Muscles soften. Breath deepens. Sleep is inevitable, guided by the quiet, unseen network that connects senses, mind, and body through spices. Night closes fully. The world grows still. Cinnamon sticks rest quietly in jars. Cardamom pods settle in dark corners. Nutmeg lies faintly cracked, releasing just enough hum to remind the mind that time has paused. Cloves sit in shadow, deep and heavy. Saffron threads fold like golden whispers. All are silent, yet their presence fills the room. Something unseen spreads warmth, a calm that touches without movement, a gentle pull toward rest that does not ask permission. Sleep is no longer a choice. It arrives quietly, as if it always knew the path. Smoke curls faintly from a small fire. Cinnamon hums softly as it meets warmth. Nutmeg whispers of faraway lands. Cardamom lifts lightly, brushing against memory. The air holds every fragrance, yet it does not shout. It folds around the body like a soft fabric. Muscles ease. Breath lengthens naturally. Thoughts slow. Sleep draws closer, moving without hurry but with perfect timing. Colors soften in the dim light. Golden saffron glimmers faintly. Turmeric glows just enough to remind the eye of warmth. Paprika hums in deep red. Even powdered cinnamon and cardamom cast shadows that shift gently with light. Color speaks quietly, weaving patterns that the mind cannot name. The body responds instinctively. Attention softens. Muscles release. Breathing eases. Sleep follows, guided by subtle layers of sight, scent, and memory combined. The world outside continues, unnoticed. Winds may pass over distant hills. Animals breathe quietly in the dark. Stars move slowly across the sky. Yet inside, spices hold their own universe. Cinnamon carries centuries. Cardamom recalls kingdoms. Nutmeg hums tropical warmth. Cloves remember distant storms. Saffron glows with captured sunlight. Each element persists quietly, releasing calm and gentle, invisible waves. The mind notices instinctively. Muscles relax. Breath deepens. Sleep moves steadily, led by forces too subtle to name. Even silence is alive. The absence of sound allows scent and color to speak louder. A faint aroma of cinnamon touches the nose. Nutmeg hums under the tongue. Cloves deepen attention without effort. Cardamom lifts freshness. Saffron glows faintly like sunlight pressed into memory. The body absorbs rhythm from stillness. Muscles release. Breath eases. Sleep arrives, patient, gentle, inevitable. Time folds inward. Hours and minutes lose shape. Spices have seen centuries, and now they hold the moment in quiet. Cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, cloves, saffron. They compress memory, history, and calm into tiny grains. The mind senses it. Attention softens without resistance. Muscles release. Breathing slows naturally. Sleep is drawn forward, guided by centuries of quiet energy contained in seeds and threads. Even the smallest gestures matter. Rolling a cinnamon stick gently between fingers, crushing a clove softly, touching a cardamom pod, separating saffron threads, each action adds a pulse to the room. The body receives it without effort. Muscles release. Attention softens. Breath deepens. Sleep moves in like a tide that cannot be stopped, guided by patterns invisible yet persistent. Memory stirs lightly. Cinnamon recalls kitchens long abandoned. Nutmeg hums of distant islands. Cardamom drifts across mountains. Cloves remember seas and storms. Saffron glimmers with centuries of sunlight. Even without tasting, smelling, or touching, the mind absorbs echoes of past lives held quietly in spice. Muscles release. Attention eases. Breathing slows. Sleep arrives gently, guided by invisible hands shaped from time and memory. The air carries the faintest movement. Smoke from earlier settles slowly. Aromas linger, merging into subtle harmony. Each scent is part of a network humans cannot see, yet instinctively obey. Cinnamon hums warmth. Cardamom lifts freshness. Nutmeg softens thought. Cloves deepen calm. Saffron glows faintly. All combine into a rhythm that the body recognizes naturally. Muscles release tension. Breath becomes steady. Sleep moves forward, patient and inevitable. Even imagined movement matters. Thinking of crushing a spice, rolling a pod, stirring gently in warm liquid, these acts awaken rhythm within the body. The mind follows without effort. Muscles relax. Attention softens. Breathing eases. Sleep arrives, guided by patterns older than thought, invisible but undeniable. Light fades further. Shadows stretch slowly across the room. Powdered cinnamon, cardamom, and nutmeg glow faintly in dim illumination. Cloves lie deep in shadow. Saffron shines faintly gold. Each element participates silently, teaching patience, stillness, and calm. The body responds instinctively. Muscles release. Breath deepens. Sleep is drawn closer by the quiet orchestra of spices, shadows, and time. Even a single seed can hold immense power. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, saffron. They carry warmth, freshness, depth, sunlight, and memory. Each is a tiny vessel of centuries, compact and precise. The mind notices instinctively. Muscles relax. Attention softens. Breathing slows. Sleep moves quietly, guided by forces too subtle to see, yet impossible to ignore. The room itself hums softly. Smoke curls, colors shift slightly, scents linger. Hands that handled spices earlier rest gently. Everything folds together, the senses, memory, ritual, motion, color, taste, and time. Each thread in the network tugs gently at the mind. Muscles ease. Breath lengthens. Sleep arrives quietly, patiently, inevitable. Even the smallest details influence the rhythm. A tiny clove releasing its faint hum. A pinch of saffron shining faintly in dim light. A cinnamon stick rolling slightly under gravity. Each pulse reaches the body and mind invisibly. Attention softens. Muscles release. Breath deepens. Sleep is guided, patient, gentle, unavoidable. Time continues beyond awareness. Yet within the room, in the presence of spices, it feels as if centuries fold into a single moment. Cinnamon remembers forests long gone. Cardamom carries distant mountains. Nutmeg hums tropical sun. Cloves recall storms. Saffron glows faintly with sunlight from generations past. All these threads converge. The mind softens. Muscles release. Breath eases. Sleep is drawn forward, carried on invisible currents of memory, history, and scent. Even when forgotten, spices hum softly. Their quiet persistence carries calm. Cinnamon hums warmth. Nutmeg softens thought. Cardamom lifts freshness. Cloves deepen calm. Saffron shines faintly. The mind and body absorb this rhythm without trying. Attention releases. Muscles relax. Breath slows. Sleep comes naturally, guided by invisible threads of scent, memory, and time. All senses rest together now. Sight softens, smell lingers faintly, taste is remembered, touch is still. Motion has ceased. The invisible thread continues silently. The body follows instinctively. Muscles release tension. Attention softens completely. Breathing deepens and steadies. Sleep arrives gently, fully, naturally, as if drawn by centuries held in small seeds and threads of gold. The world outside continues without notice. Wind may shift, stars may move, yet inside, the network of spices, memory, color, scent, and quiet ritual holds perfectly. Cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, cloves, saffron, they all hum softly. They guide the mind and body through a quiet passage from awareness to rest. Sleep arrives completely, inevitable, patient, and gentle. Night becomes still. Seeds rest. Smoke settles, colors fade, fragrance lingers. Time folds inward and the room breathes softly in rhythm with the mind. The world does not notice. The spices hum softly, invisible but undeniable. Sleep moves forward quietly, carried by every small detail, every subtle rhythm, every whisper from centuries compressed into cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, cloves, and saffron. Even when the mind tries to resist, it cannot. Every sense, every memory, every subtle pulse pulls attention inward. Muscles release fully. Breath is calm. Sleep is no longer a choice. It arrives quietly, gently, inevitably, guided by the last whispers of spices holding the night in stillness, wrapping mind and body in a rhythm older than thought itself.